You mentioned some of the critique from the left. I'm sure you've read all of it, or read most of it. I'm sure you've talked about the Zephyr Teachout review of abundance. I wanted to get your reaction to one part of that because I think it summarizes a lot of the criticism on the left. I mean, you mentioned the Bernie side. There's also a Warren-esque critique as well. And she writes, I still can't tell after reading Abundance whether Klein and Thompson are seeking something fairly small bore and correct, we need zoning reform, or non-trivial and deeply regressive, we need deregulation, or whether there is room within Abundance for anti-monopoly politics and a more full-throated unleashing of American potential. Matt Brunig has a similar critique. He says it would be a huge mistake to sideline whatever focus there is on welfare state expansion and economic egalitarianism in favor of a focus on administrative burdens in construction. It's not a book about like monopolistic power practices and corporate concentration, so I get that. I guess to the question that Teachout asked, is there room in Abundance for a critique of concentrated economic power and anti-monopoly politics and all that?
I'm trying to think about the nicest way to say this. My friends in the whole problem is oligarchy part of the party, and I believe a good part of our problems are oligarchy. But there are certain kinds of problems they're then willing to see and certain kinds they're not as willing to see. So in housing, I find a lot of them get obsessed with this idea that private investors are buying up a bunch of rental housing. And this is an extremely small part of the market right now, and is just not the main problem in housing. But because it is the villain they are comfortable having, it is where they want to put their focus. Kamala Harris, I was very excited when she brought out her big plan to build 3 million units of housing, but her plan never would have achieved anything like it. It did have a big thing about trying to do something about this private investor buying up housing issue, though. So you can really get, I think, taken off the track. A thing I found like really interesting in Zephyr's review was that, is it something good and small like zoning reform? And like, try doing zoning reform if you think it's small, right? Or something bad like deregulation. Okay, interesting, right?
Yeah.
Deregulation is a word that I think shuts liberals down a bit. And it shouldn't. A lot of what we're pointing out in the book is that the player that is often most regulated is not the market, it's the government itself. If you want to understand why the government can't build public housing effectively, I mean, in many ways, the federal government building public housing is now functionally illegal. It's been regulated out of possibility. If you want to know why we didn't build California high-speed rail, if you want to know why it's so expensive to build affordable housing in a lot of liberal jurisdictions when you trigger public money, it is because of the regulations we put on government.